All right, good evening, everybody. Sean Poe here from Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I have the opportunity tonight to talk to you guys about just the business and the opportunity within the profession of network marketing. And I'm super honored and humbled to have this chance because back in 2011, I can tell you being kind of in the background of the corporate world, I didn't understand the first thing about network marketing. And I can tell you when we fast forward today to what I've seen transpire over almost the last 9 years, is that when this profession, this industry, when it's done right with the right people and the right products, it's one of the most unbelievable ways to do business. And we really want to educate people on what exactly it is, because I think that's what gets in the way for a lot of people. You talk to some people and they're like, oh, that's one of those things. It's a pyramid scheme. It doesn't work. You can't make money off of that. And a lot of the times when you start to ask questions of people about what they truly mean by that, they don't have a lot of understanding of this profession or this industry. And it really does take just that discovery of what's happened in the past. You know, do you have experience with this? Did you have a bad experience or no? Maybe somebody that did. But oftentimes, like was the case with me back in 2011, it was just an uneducated viewpoint on the industry itself. We always tell the story about Michelle and I when we first got started. Our joke around the house was, if we're professional network marketers, we're going to get a bottle of wine and a Redbox movie with that $20 check and celebrate that we're professional network marketers. That's how serious, we kind of took the business initially. But that viewpoint changed really, really quick. And I think when you understand network marketing and especially LifeVantage and how the compensation plan is set up, unlike the corporate world that I was working in, where you really had to separate yourself from your peers to get that next raise, to get that next promotion, we only have success when we help other people have success. And the more people that you can help and bring up to their goals, the faster and sooner you can reach your goals. This is definitely not a business that you do by yourself. And that took me a little bit of time to understand. You see, Michelle and I, we came from corporate backgrounds. She was huge in the wholesale lending mortgage industry. She was with one of the top subprime lending institutions before the collapses started happening around 2008. I was with Wells Fargo Securities, Wells Fargo Advantage Funds, and then my last stop in the corporate arena was with Citigroup. And so, that's really what we knew is that big business environment. We had online business. We loved it. But I can tell you that, when you're in business for yourself, oftentimes you're your own best employee. And, when you stop working, the machine stops working as well. And so we were spending a lot of our times on nights and weekends trying to build our online business that we absolutely loved, but it was really, really hard for us to scale that and get it where we wanted to. And so we were searching, we were looking, we were entrepreneurial. We love business, creating new things, working with others. But we didn't, like I said, understand this industry and this profession. So, when we initially got in, probably the biggest thing that helped us was having mentors in this that had a desire and a responsibility on their end to really get us up through that learning curve. And fortunately, when we came in, Carrie Dickey, Stu Brody, Carrie Williams, Maria Williams, they really worked with us to understand it. And we were able to grow up in this profession, having mentorship from people that had been in the industry, for decades with Carrie and Stu. And so we sat back and we knew that if somebody else in the business world had proven something to work and they had a roadmap for us to follow, we definitely could perform the same actions that they had done to get similar results. And that's what we did, is we locked arms with them. And when they told us to do something, we did it. When they told us to have an in-home meeting, we did it. When they told us to raise our hand and, at the levels of Pro 3, start doing Super Saturdays with the local market, we did that. And I'll never forget that advice from Carrie and Stu early on was anytime you're asked to do anything, raise your hand and say yes. And that's really how we've built this business and learned it from the inside. Was at any opportunity, regardless how we felt as far as our experience, our own knowledge base, was if somebody else believed we were at that point, we did it. I want to start though really by laying the groundwork of what this profession is. And one of the great places that I go to for having some of the metrics and just some of the numbers is the DSA. So the Direct Selling Association. You can go to DSA.org. And I'm going to share my screen real quick because some of these numbers absolutely blew my mind coming from that skeptical mindset early on. And I always say in business, it's totally good and okay to be skeptical. You just have to be open-minded to hear the information and become knowledgeable enough to make a decision whether this is right for you or not. So one of the things that I did was really tear apart on the business side with this being a publicly traded company. It wasn't on the NASDAQ, but it still was publicly traded back in 2011. And I could look at the different financials, but the industry in general, let's start there. And I'll share my screen with the DSA.org. With their information, because I think this is critical to understand. We hear over and over again that things are different in somebody else's part of the world or the country or their state. You know, people just, they're not as receptive to this or, you know, in different countries. But the reality is there's going to be people in every single market that are going to see this for what it is. They're going to be excited about what we have our hands on. There's going to be some people that need their hand held and get through kind of the stigma or the negative connotations that are attached to it. And then there's going to be some people that this just never is going to be for them. But I want you guys to understand that, you know, we Michelle and I, we live in a state that has around 600,000 people total. But when I go to the DSA and I'm in the statistics and the inside overview page, there's actually this map here that you can click on the different states. So let's go to my state of South Dakota. And if somebody were to tell me, you know, oh my gosh, there's no opportunity in South Dakota, I can look here and tell you that there's estimated direct retail sales in our market of $138 million, you guys, and 60,000 people almost involved in some sort of direct sales. So if you consider, you know, a state of 600,000 people, that's 10% of the population that would be involved in some capacity with direct retail sales. That's awesome. Go to a state like California. We saw Michael Epstein on here, you know, in his marketplace, a little bit bigger than South Dakota. So California, the estimated direct retail sales is $4.4 billion, you guys. And there's over 2.2 million people in the state that are involved at some level with network marketing. Go over to the East Coast, Pennsylvania, 1.2 billion, half a million people involved. Go to New Jersey, almost $1 billion in revenue, 385,000 people. New York, we hear often New Yorkers are not like the rest of the world. They're very skeptical and they don't want to hear about this. The reality is $2.3 billion are estimated to be done there with just under 1 million people. Let's go into the Midwest. So Indiana, 611 million. You guys start to see that it doesn't matter based off the population. You're going to get similar ratios of how many people within those marketplaces are interested at some level in doing network marketing or direct retail sales. And then look at the top here, just as far as the total numbers. So, and this is going back to 2018. The 2019 numbers aren't out yet, too early in the year for the full year of 2019. But in 2018, you guys, there were 6.2 million direct sailors in the United States. So that's not even all of North America, including what's happening in Canada and Mexico. Just in the US, 6.2 million. There's 1 million people that are doing it full time, which qualifies as 30 hours or more a week. And then there's over 5 million that are doing it part time. fewer than 30 hours a week, but involved in some sort of capacity to sponsor consumers and to sponsor new distributors to join their team. And I want you to put that into reality of what's happening in the rest of the marketplace, what's happening in the space, the work environment in general. If there's 6.2 million people involved in direct sales. Well, take the healthcare industry. There's approximately 1.1 million doctors in the United States, and there's approximately 7.8 million nurses. So that's 4.9 million people in the US that are either a doctor or a nurse. That's a million less, over a million less than people that are involved in direct sales. That's a crazy statistic, right? Look at teachers, right? From kindergarten to 12th grade, including public and private schools, there's around 3.2 million teachers in the US. There's 1.1 million firefighters and 900,000 police officers. So combine all of those together, all the teachers, kindergarten through 12th grade, all the firefighters, both that are paid as and the volunteers, and all of the police officers, you're looking at 5.2 million people. That's the amount of people that are doing network marketing part-time. Add on the million that are doing it full-time, it's over a million more people that are doing that. So I think it's important when you're in business is to really understand the environment that you're in and compared to what. You know, if somebody challenges me on the validity of this environment, I think that it's pretty easy for you to go back and just know a couple of those things, or be able to go to the Direct Selling Association and just show them, here's the reality of it. And then you can break it down into the different categories that people are involved in. And you can see our position within the wellness industry is 35.6% of what's happening in this $35.4 billion retail environment in direct sales. So this is big, this is powerful. You can look at the demographic breakdowns of ages. People will often say, well, you know, younger people, they just don't get it, they don't understand. Well, the reality is almost 20% of all the people that are in this industry, this profession, are between the ages of 25 and 34. That's a pretty big group. When you consider 6.2 million people, there's a lot of people in there that are younger that are wanting to do it. But that's not, you know, the only part of that. It's breaking out pretty good there. 19%, 25 to 34, 26% is 35 to 44, 24%, 45 to 54. And then, you know, looking at 55 to 64, 17%, and 8% of the people that are involved in this are above the age of 65. So it runs the gamut. There really isn't, you know, that specific target market that you'd be like, oh, you can only get people that are between the ages of 40 and 55, and that's who's doing network marketing. That isn't the reality. And so when you start to have these sorts of numbers that you can fall back on, or at least know people involved in the business with you, that you can help get the information out to your prospects, out to people that are challenging you on it, it just is going to raise you to the point, as like Herbert Harris would say, that makes you bazooka proof on knowing what you have your hands on. And again, I'll say it over and over all day long, when this profession is done right with the right people and the right products, it's one of the most amazing ways to do business. So what's happening in the business world? Why would we be excited about this in 2020 and more so than we were in 2011? Well, I think, you know, our company has gotten so much more rock solid with the expansion of the product lines. Michelle and I, we used to build this $40 at a time. It was NRF2 was 99% of our sales back then, and we were able to still hit Pro 7 in 12 months. And I'm not saying that to brag about anything that we did, but I'm highlighting the point that now somebody could come in like us with no network marketing background, no knowledge of nutraceutical and supplement industry, and come in and just use the roadmap that's in place. And we have a way bigger average price point of people coming in and ordering products. You know, somewhere between most organizations, between $80 and $120 average in their sales that are coming in. And we've got NRF1, we've got NRF2, we've got NAD that's in there, and all the ancillary products in addition to that. But in the landscape of business in general, we're shifting more and more away from brick and mortar than ever before. I like to highlight especially what happened this past year with Toys R Us going bankrupt. You know, I was born in '77. I grew up as what we referred to as a Toys R Us kid, right? You wanted that magazine to circle everything at Christmas that you wanted. There wasn't any financial advisor that I knew when I had my security licenses that would have told you back in the early 2000s that Toys R Us would go out of business, that they'd be bankrupt in 20 years. And the reality is, when you looked at what happened this past like holiday season, for example, were more or less toys sold in 2019 Christmas season. It was the highest selling ever point of toys in the world, and Toys R Us went bankrupt the year before. How did that happen? It's the shift of the landscape of what happened in the business environment, where people now are gravitating towards online sales, right? What put them out of business? Pretty much Amazon. People want products directly shipped from a distribution center to their house. The toys aren't different. It's the same toys. It's how consumers are acquiring them. And that's what I love about where we're positioned, because that's exactly what we do. And that's what we need to help people understand is it's just that how the supply of a product or service is getting to the end consumer, right? That's what makes us special in what we do. And our specialty is within the nutraceutical realm of upregulating and downregulating genes, activating the body, getting it back in balance to do what it was designed to do. That's our specialty. And so when I look at these different shifts that are happening, I get excited. Because if you think about your life, for example, I was thinking today about all the subscription services that we have now. It's crazy. Right? Our phone services subscription, our TV services subscription. We actually have a subscription for our car wash, that we have a monthly amount that we're paying for our car wash. And more things are gravitating towards that. Things like Bulletproof, our coffee. We get our coffee on a monthly basis on subscription. Some of the water that we drink, things like that. And so we're positioned in a marketplace that is more gravitating towards people being comfortable and familiar with that's how we're acquiring goods and services in 2020. Now, if you also looked at the other shift that I like to talk about in the world that's happening is in the environment that we live in, we're shifting in the health industry more towards proactive health as opposed to reactive health, where we're going to the doctor once we have issues and having to deal with them after the problem already exists. I think more and more people are gravitating towards the aspect of being proactive with health, keeping their body healthy when it's healthy, and then hoping and having potential solutions that are in place that they don't have to deal with some of the things that they would have without having that proactive measure. So we're in the position of two huge paradigm shifts that are happening both in the business world on how people are acquiring products, and our specialty of, activating the body and doing it in a natural way, as opposed to big pharma and having drugs and stuff like that. Now, I'm not saying there isn't a great place for that in taking care of people, but I think that, we've never seen the marketplace as big prior to our specialty and our niches. So that's where I get excited on the business, you guys, and it is not slowing down. This past year, we've had the biggest financial quarter that we've ever had. We had the biggest financial year that we've ever had. The stock price has been soaring. Things like that are super important to know and understand, because we're not just that, $40 million company that it was when I first started. We're at $250 million. And now it's that next point in time to jump from $250 million to $500 million. Knowing that we're publicly traded is amazing information. I was having this conversation with somebody a week ago. They were actually telling me that they didn't like the fact that it was publicly traded. And I asked them why. And again, asking questions to people's responses is going to give you a lot of insight of where they're coming from. Well, what they didn't like was they felt that we were held to a higher standard than our competitors because they were private. And to me, it was the exact opposite, because I've seen a lot of companies that not only just in this industry, but in the business world in general that are private, that overnight you thought that they were in good financial position and they evaporate because the financial numbers behind the curtain were horrible. And we see it in this profession. We've seen it this past year in the profession of companies having to shut down and close, that you thought everything was great. And so we had the conversation about, I can go on to places like finance.yahoo.com, and I can actually look and see what's going on with the health of the company financially. If they have issues that are coming up, there's a lot of issues that have to be reported to the street when they arise, and different changes that are happening, maybe even in the corporate structure. You can go back and look and see, you know, how are these guys being paid? What sort of incentives do they have to make the company grow? What kind of barriers are we facing? And when we have those quarterly reports to the street, I absolutely tune into every single one of them, because I want to know what our company is currently doing and what they're suggesting we're positioned to do in the coming quarters and the coming years. And that's where I get excited about it being public. Being on the NASDAQ, ringing the closing bell the other day, that was a huge deal. There's not many companies within our space that can say, hey, we were invited out to be part of the Health and Wellness Week with the NASDAQ, and our corporate staff was ringing the closing bell on the NASDAQ floor. And just having those conversations, or at least, again, having the resources or tools available for somebody that is that business expert to relay that information. This could even be a tool that you're using for some people. Maybe they're newer distributors or people that have seen a lot of information and just have some questions on it, is to just share with them from the vantage point of somebody that came out of the corporate structure, the corporate environment, on what I got excited about, why we're more excited than ever before. And it all comes back to, you know, are you passionate about this? Are you excited about it? Is it something that you can do? And the reality is it does not matter what your prior experience is, your background, your education level. This is one of the most complete, fair playing fields I've ever seen in business. We've had success in other places, but a lot of that had to do with skill set or knowledge, more so than anything else. Some of it had to do, like when I was in Citigroup, there were positions that we couldn't even hire somebody for if they didn't have a master's degree. There might have been somebody that was way more qualified, but they didn't have that experience or that education level, and we weren't even allowed to interview them. So with this, you know, where else are you going to find an opportunity that you can have your hands on a multi-million-dollar business for the cost and the startup and the overhead that we have? I've yet to see it. And if you guys know about it, let me know what it is, because, you know, I'm open-minded to learning about other things. We're not going anywhere, and this company is not going anywhere. We're here to drive this to the next level. And those of you that were out in Cancun for that first ever Destination Elite Academy, like, that's things that they're on the forefront of trying and exploring and seeing how we can do things new and different and better and keep growing instead of staying in the same position and being stagnant with things, is see what's working. And I'll challenge you guys, this is, if you're not having the success that you're wanting, is to keep going. Because there isn't anything special that Michelle and I have done to get to the level that we're at. And I see several elite distributors that are on here as well. And I would say that if we brought them on to talk for a second, they would tell you the same thing. It wasn't that they had something different than you. It's that they did it over and over and over again long enough to get the desired results that they wanted. And they're continuing to do that if they want to continue to grow their business. One thing that I'll go back on with network marketing is we're in a space that still, I think, contains somewhat of a stigma, somewhat of a negative connotation. I go back to learning from when I was graduating high school. I got the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And when I started to read more about Robert Kiyosaki, one thing that I remember him stating was his, what he referred to as his rich dad, was one of the first people to bring franchising to Hawaii. And I think it was in the 50s that he had done this. And back in the 50s, when he was talking about the story, he said that franchising was looked upon as not a truly legitimate way to do business or a way to grow wealth. And when we look at today, or even 20, 30 years ago, nobody would argue that franchising works. And again, have there been, you know, bad franchises? Of course. Have there been people that have been burnt by franchises? Of course. But the reality is, just like network marketing in this industry, this profession, when franchising is done right, it's an amazing way to do business. Now, if you look at some place like Starbucks, you're looking at probably $1 million just to acquire the right to open up a new Starbucks, right? We're at a point in time that ship has sailed. There's new franchises that might be available that are a lot less, but you're not looking at the cost of this industry, this profession, to get your hands on something that potentially would be a multi-million-dollar business in the franchising world. And I think that's exactly where we're headed with network marketing and this industry. Is we're at the precipice of it having that shift where the average person looks at it and is like, oh, absolutely, that's a no-brainer. This is one of the most legitimate ways to do business, and that's how the landscape of the world's changing. And that's what we're huge advocates of right now, is educating the world on what this is, and again, why we're excited about it. Because if you get yourself in the right position with the right opportunities in the business world, you separate yourself from a lot of other people. We were talking about on stage in Cancun that, you know, in the business world, a lot of people talk about location, location, location. Well, anymore, escaping that brick and mortar environment, that isn't necessarily true. It's more so about timing and speed to market and what you can deliver to a consumer that separates you out from the noise of everything else that they're hearing. And LifeVantage, there still is not another company that even comes close to competing with our flagship product of NRF2, right? Reducing oxidative stress an average of 40% in 30 days. There isn't anything nutraceutically or pharmaceutically that even does that in 2020. So our original flagship product is separate and unique in this space, in the space of business in general. And so those are the sorts of things that I would look at. If you have somebody that's on the fence, is really getting down to what their objections are and overcoming those. But a lot of the time, it's more so the fear of, will this work for me and can I do it? And that's what I love about what we have our hands on, is there truly is a roadmap in place, and we have more tools and more availability for anybody to jump in and have success than ever before. You know, what's out there on Facebook, what's out there on YouTube, what the company's offering on their site and through the app. At the click of a button, people have unlimited access to tons and tons of information to build their business. So I could talk for honestly hours about this. I'm so excited about this profession, and I'm a huge advocate for it. We support a lot of different companies. But what I want you to ask yourself is, where do you want to go in 2020? You know, what's your vision for 2020? Because we're already, you know, a month and a half into the year. Pretty soon it's going to be 2 months in, a sixth of the year already done. And if you don't have your goals and your ambitions and what you want scraped out now, all of a sudden it's going to be summer. And then all of a sudden it's going to be fall and then winter again. And we're going to be looking at the end of the year. So what I would ask you to do is, how serious do you want this to be for you? Do you want to remain and be part of that, you know, 4.2 billion, 5.2 million people that are doing this part-time? Is that your goal? Is it, you know, an extra $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a month? Or are you looking to become part of that million people in the United States that are doing this full-time and earning full-time money? Because the potential is out there for you, regardless what rank you're at right now, whether you've been in this for 10 years or you've been in this business for one day. 2020 can absolutely transform every aspect of your life. And Michelle and I are living proof of that. In a short period of time, when we started treating this business serious, Michelle was able to get me out of the corporate environment. And we've been doing this full time together since January of 2012. And we always joke around that we're free range humans now, with the ability that this opportunity's provided us. And I know that isn't for everybody, but just ask yourself, what is it that I'm looking for? What is it that I don't have enough belief or faith in that's holding me back from getting where I want to get? Maybe it's the products, the science. I would challenge anybody on that. We just heard the other day that there's 31 studies out there now, peer-reviewed studies on our flagship product alone. I mean, the science is rock solid, but you know, maybe it is on the business side. Ask yourself the questions though. What is it specifically within the business that's challenging me or holding me back? And maybe it's just that you haven't gone through the motions of treating this like a business. I think all day long, we would be $1 billion company if people treated the business side as equally important as they treat the product and the science side. And when you have those two things in your arsenal, within your tool set to share this information with other people, it'll change your life. It'll change the scope of your business. It'll change everything. And I know all day long, there isn't anything that somebody could have told me today that I would have been like, oh, you're right. Doesn't work. It's a pyramid scheme. You know, it isn't an opportunity for people to get in today that existed 5 years ago or 10 years ago and it's gone. Or on the product side that the products don't work or they're not good. There isn't anything. I'm completely bulletproof on all aspects of this. And I challenge you, if you're not at that point, to figure out what it is that's holding you back and get up to the point that you're bazooka proof as well. So that half hour went really, really quick. I hope that this had value for you guys. Again, that first bit of information I was giving to you was from the Direct Selling Association. We're part of that. Our company is part of that. Our CEO actually sits on the board for the Direct Selling Association. You can go to dsa.org, but there's all sorts of different places that you can go to find statistics and insight on this profession, this industry. And I'm going to leave it with what I started with. When this is done right with the right people and the right products, it's one of the most incredible ways to do business. I hope that you guys find exactly what you're looking for in 2020. We're here to help. We're not going away anytime soon, and we're excited about the opportunities that we have in place. Take care, you guys. Have a great night.